Hey guys, welcome in to Fantasy Football Academy 2020. I am the Dean and I am poolside in Rain, Louisiana at Cajun Fitness in Rain. Hey, look, if you in the area, you need to come down here and check it out. It's a beautiful facility. Love the facility, love the people. The staff is amazing. So look, it's Saturday. It's the 12th. We've already had a taste on Thursday night, and what a game, fantasy-wise, if you had a Chief or David Johnson. Anybody else? Not so hot. Deshaun Watson, yeah, he put up some numbers, but look, if you went out and you reached, because I told you were going to have to reach in your draft for Pat Mahomes. If you reached, you were rewarded. 3 touchdowns. Look, had a phenomenal game. And CEH, you were sitting there if you drafted him. And I told you during draft season, you guys were going to have to reach for CEH. He was a rookie, running back. I mean, everything's against you picking him in the first round. But if you picked him in the first round, 138 yards and a touchdown, that is absolutely a phenomenal debut. Love it. There's a lot of potential there. Just the way that he looked in that offense looked like he'd been there for 3 seasons already. Okay? And that's what you're looking for when you have your $500 million quarterback go up to you and go, hey, I want that guy, and you go get him. This is the result that you're looking for. So, what are we talking about in today's episode? Look, today's episode is going to be a little longer. We're going probably about 45 minutes to an hour. So, strap in, get ready. We're talking Week 1 stars from last year. Why are we talking Week 1 stars from last year, Dean? Because here's the thing. You're gonna hear some names that are big names, and then you're gonna hear some names that you go, that guy finished? Yes. Okay, so Week 1, there's a lot of guys who just blow up Week 1 and they give you that real good tingly feeling inside, and then they disappear. Okay, we're gonna look at a couple of quarterbacks, some running backs, a wide receiver, and 1 tight end. Why 1 tight end? Because this 1 tight end was absolutely amazing in his Week 1 start, and then he fell off the map, literally. Okay, we're also going to be talking start-sits. Look, if you had any Houston Texan, if you had any Chief that you drafted to start, you were starting them. And we're not going to be talking about guys like CMC. We're not going to be talking about Saquon. We're not going to be talking about Zeke or any of those guys that you got in the first or second round. Why? Because if you drafted them, you're starting them. Okay? Round 1, round 2, even rounds 3 and 4, if you drafted these guys, regardless of matchup, you are probably going to be playing them. Okay? Now, if you've got a guy, and there's some of us out there who maybe you're in a weak league, maybe you were able to stack your squad. So I know that my wife's squad, she's got T.Y. Hilton this week going up against Jacksonville. And I looked at her squad, and I can't tell her to start him over anybody else. Okay? The matchups that she has across the board at her other wide receiver spots, I just can't argue with. I can't in good conscience tell her, hey, go ahead and start T.Y. over this guy or over that guy. I just can't do it because the matchups are just too good. So what we're going to do is tomorrow I'm going to try to post, or actually maybe later today, try to post what the squads are for my league of record. I'm also in another listener league for local radio stations, so I was the 12th pick in that one, and that was a totally different draft than my league of record draft. I was able to get Devontae Adams and Julio in rounds 1 and 2 because I was the 12th guy. I went 0 RB in the first couple of rounds, and in rounds 3 and 4, I was able to come back with my running backs, but I'll get you guys that info later. So let's kick this off, and we're also going to do a Week 1 preview and matchups and some storylines that you're going to be following. So last year, Matt Stafford was the QB1, 27.6 points. Okay, great. Then he gets hurt halfway through the season and just falls off, and everybody forgets about him. Look, Matt Stafford has the ability to get you a absolutely phenomenal season if he stays healthy. Okay, I have him as a backup on one of my squads. I have absolute confidence in Matt Stafford this year, so keep an eye out on. Now, here's two other names that you're gonna go, really? Yes. Case Keenum had 27 points in week 1. Where is he now? He's a backup. Not even starting gig. Marcus Mariota, 24.32 points last year. What's he doing now? Oh, that's right. He's warming a spot on the IR and a backup position in Vegas. Okay, come on, guys. He might as well move to Reno. That's where all the backup acts go when they're done with Vegas. They go to Reno. So, how about our running backs? Last year, awesome Eckler. Love Eckler. Without Melvin Gordon, 33.4 points. Look, I had him last year. I was absolutely thrilled to go out and get Eckler as late as I got him and have him perform the way he performed. I knew without Melvin Gordon that he was going to shine. When Gordon came back, I made sure that I went out and got Gordon. I didn't care if Gordon rotted on my bench, but I knew that the split was going to be interesting. I was able to start both of them, which I don't recommend on a normal basis, but the amount of checkdowns that Phillip Rivers has, he was able to support 2 running backs of fantasy value. So now, Marlon Mack. Look, Marlon Mack this year is not Marlon Mack from last year. Marlon Mack from last year was dealing with Jacoby Brissett, who was just not that good. So there was a lot of volume there in the passing game. There's a lot of volume in the running game. They really didn't have anybody else, and now they go out and get Jonathan Taylor. Look, Taylor's going to take over his job by weeks 3 or 4. If you had Marlon Mack this week, you can probably go ahead and flex him, but that's about it. I wouldn't expect that much more from Mack than a flex position. Whoever your starting running backs are, you're going to get some production out of Marlon Mack from a flex position, not from a starting running back position. Just the simple fact that they invested way too much draft capital in Jonathan Taylor, and the matchup against Jacksonville, horrible defense. It's just going to be just crazy for the amount of volume that Marlon Mack's going to get in week 1, but don't expect it on a week-to-week basis. David Johnson last year finished as the RB5 with 27.7 points. Okay? Or I'm sorry, 25.7 points. Look, DJ was great in Arizona in the beginning of the season, then he kind of fell off. Look, Cliff Kingsbury's offense just did not fit him. You saw what he did Thursday night. Almost 20 points. I had him on my listener league. I love seeing him run rampant, and he looked good. Okay, I know it's only week 1, but he looked really good. So I was excited. I kind of had to pump my brakes a little bit, not to get overzealous about him. But I put it out there on Twitter. I was like, hey, that feeling you get when you're right on starting with Marlon Mack, I'm like, call me crazy again. So now this next guy finished as the RB10 last year, and it's Lev Bell, 23.2 points. Now look, I'm not seeing a lot of good things coming from Lev Bell. There's word out of camp that he's already lost a step, and this is coming from his own people. So what does that say? That's not really a good sign. Wide receivers, look, there are 4 names on my list, and all 4 of these guys are just hands off for the rest of the season. But week 1, these guys are 2 of these guys are week 1 phenomenal. Sammy Watkins, look, you saw Sammy Watkins in Thursday night's game. If you had him on your bench, you lost 21 points. If you had him in your starting lineup, people were calling you crazy because there's too many targets going around in KC. So, but you were happy with the 21 points this year. This past week, last year, 46.8. He just went off last year. Deshaun Jackson, 35.4, with the amount of injuries that they have had in Philly going up against Washington. We're going to see what Washington's defense is all about. But just the sheer volume that Jackson's going to get with Jalen Reagor injured, with Alshon Jeffries out, okay? This is going to be the Ertz-Jackson show, and we don't know what's going to happen with Miles Sanders, so Boston Scott is a really good play if you need a flex position. But I really don't see anybody, unless you drafted him as a handicap for as a handcuff for Miles Sanders, I don't really see any reason to start him. John Ross with Cincinnati. Look, 34.8 points. Great week. But that's a great week one. But he didn't really do a whole lot the rest of the season. Philip Dorsett, that's right. Philip Dorsett finished as the wide receiver 8 last year with 25.5 points. I don't know what to tell you because Philip Dorsett just disappeared off the face of the earth later in the season. So this is what I'm telling you guys. Week 1 is great for these breakout players, but don't hang your hat that this is going to carry throughout the season. There are some guys that are just matchup friendly, some things that just fall right for some guys, and we're about to get into start, sits, and the injury list. So let's kick off the injury list real quick. Look, some of these guys, like Edelman's on the injury list with a knee issue versus the Dolphins. It's Belichick, it's boss, it's New England, so a lot of these guys, Belichick loves to put people on IR, or at least he's got a knee injury when all he did was bump his knee on a counter, and he kind of tries to play mind games with the opposing coach. So I don't know how much I really trust the injury report from the Patriots. So that's something to keep an eye on. Golden Tate has a hamstring issue he's dealing with going up against Pittsburgh on Monday night. So Sterling Shepard is a guy to look at. If you have him on your lineup. Look, Saquon is, yes, it's Pittsburgh, but I have Saquon in our league of record. I was the number 1 overall pick, so I'm starting him regardless. I don't care what the matchup is. He's going to get volume. He is the only show in the backfield for New York. So Mike Williams has a shoulder AC joint issue versus Cincinnati. What does this mean? This means that Keenan Allen is an absolute must start for week 1. Okay? He's going up against Cincinnati. Look, Cincinnati does not scare me for the defense. Just on volume alone, Keenan Allen's going to be a monster for you for week 1. Kenny Galladay versus the Bears is dealing with a hamstring issue. So what does that mean? That means that if you have, we got a thing about doing videos outside, you get the wildlife. But Kenny G, like I said, has hamstring against the Bears. So what does that mean for you for week 1? That means if you have Marvin Jones Jr., you are putting him in your lineup. This is the Bears that moves Marvin Jones up to number 1 in probably what's going to be a very pass-happy game. Now, you're going to hear things throughout the regular season talking about some terms that you might not be familiar with. You're going to hear negative and positive game script. And what is that? Basically what that is if it's a negative game script, that means that the team is behind, that they're losing, that they're going to have to abandon the run, and they're going to have to throw the ball a lot just to keep up and keep the game close. That means their defense sucks. Okay? So the Detroit Lions have a horrible defense. What does that mean? That means that the majority of the time they're going to be in a negative game script, which is going to bode well for anyone who has a receiver from Detroit. Okay, so we're talking Galladay, we're talking Jones. Now, we're also talking TJ Hawkinson, who was last year's just beast for week 1. And that's one of the tight ends that that's the one tight end that I wanted to talk about for the week 1 breakout. T.J. Hawkinson had about 100 and something yards and I think 2 touchdowns for week 1, but then he got injured, fell off. Okay, this year he's back, he's healthy. He is my must start for tight end at week 1. Okay, let's get through the rest of these injuries real quick. I just got a couple more. DeAndre Swift has a hip issue again with the Bears. What does that mean? That means that Kerryon Johnson is going to step up. How much volume he's going to see because of the negative game script is kind of up in the air. So if you've got somebody else that you can start over Kerryon with confidence, go right ahead. Okay. Cortland Sutton has a shoulder injury going up against the Tennessee Titans defense. Now look, the Titans are going to be a ground and pound. Yes, A.J. Brown's going to get his volume. He is probably the only wide receiver from the Titans that I would actually pay attention to. But, like I said, Cortland Sutton, what does that mean? That means that Jerry Jeudy is probably going to have a very good debut as a rookie wide receiver. So, Mike Evans, this is a big one. Mike Evans is probably going to be a game-time decision. Now, game-time decision against the Saints. Now, here's the thing. If you are Tampa Bay and you're Bruce Arians, do you want to trout out your number 1 deep threat guy, get him more dinged up than he already is against a bad matchup for you? It's not like Brady's, used to dealing with these big wide receivers. He's used to having smaller wide receivers like Chris Godwin. He's used to having to go to other options. He's used to pulling guys off the street and making them, fantasy relevant. So do you go ahead and put him out there? If you have Mike Evans and you're thinking about starting him, you might want to look at somebody else, okay? I just say this for a cautionary tale. You don't want to be caught game day. Maybe you overslept. Maybe you missed the game. Maybe you got caught up and you didn't pull Evans from your roster, so you left him on there thinking that he was going to start. He winds up either not starting or doing really, really poorly. Maybe he gets in a couple of plays and then he loses it on a deep route. He makes a cut here, a cut there, and he pulls a hamstring and he's gone for the rest of the game and maybe a couple more weeks for a recovery. So let's just back off of Mike Evans this week. Let's take a step back, see if there's somebody else on your roster that you can start that has a plus matchup. When I say plus matchup, that's just a matchup that's going to be really, really good for them. Like basically anybody that's going against Jacksonville or anybody going against the Lions. This is Allen Robinson. This is Anthony Miller. So that's something to keep an eye on. Now, my starts of the week. Okay, I got 2 at quarterback. We're going to talk Phillip Rivers versus the Jags. Look, I just said it's the Jags. This is not the Jags of old with Tom Coughlin. This is the new and unimproved Jacksonville Jaguars defense that Phillip Rivers should just carve up like a Thanksgiving turkey, okay? So look for it. Look for Matt Stafford to just go off against the Bears. This one could actually turn into a shootout. Trubisky could actually have a really good fantasy day because of the matchup, okay? And these are the things that you look at for a plus matchup. Who are guys that you can stream? Who are you guys that you can take off your bench if you have a bad matchup with one of your starters? Like if you have somebody who, let's say you have a running back that's going like Nick Chubb, who's going up against the Ravens defense this week. If you have Marlon Mack, if you have Jonathan Taylor, go ahead, put him in and take Nick Chubb, maybe push him aside. Yes, he's going to get the volume, but he's going up against a really stout defense against the run. So, things to think about. Austin Eckler going up against Cincinnati, okay? So, Eckler's going up against Cincinnati. Tyrod Taylor's the quarterback. He's a game manager, okay? He's not going to air this thing out, right? And it's Cincinnati. I really don't see this turning into a shootout. It's a rookie quarterback for Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. going up against a really good Chargers defense. The Chargers defense is legit. Don't be fooled. Don't forget that they have Nick Bosa. They just signed to a big deal. So, take a look at these things. Now, this next guy, it pains me to say it because he used to play for me. I say the Redskins. Washington football team, sorry. Deshaun Jackson versus Washington. This is going to be an absolute must start for anybody who is looking at streaming. And if you're looking at streaming that just this early, week one in the league, in the season, all that means is that it doesn't mean that you did bad picking a wide receiver. That might mean that you have receivers who really don't have good matchups. Or they got dinged up like Mike Evans, okay, or Mike Williams. I don't know what it is about Mike, but Mike gets hurt. So, the Colts defense is a must start. It's against Jacksonville. It's Gardner Minshew. Look, I love Gardner Minshew. I love the bravado. I love the attitude. I love the whole, thing that they got going on there with him. But they're tanking for Trevor Lawrence coming out of Clemson next year. Plain and simple. They've shipped out their defense. They let Leonard Fournette walk. So, come on, guys. You can't even pronounce some of the names in the backfield for Jacksonville. So the Colts D is just going to have a field day with this. And again, I'm not talking like the must-start defenses. I'm not talking about the Niners. I'm not talking about the Ravens. Okay, these are guys that you've got to start. The Colts, if you don't have one of those top elite defenses, this is one of the matchups that you can take advantage of. And if you took my advice and maybe passed on a lot of defenses and you put depth at wide receiver and you put depth at running back, great, love it, thank you, appreciate it. If you're listening to the show for the first time, remember, subscribe, like, and share. You can get a lot of tips here because I'm all about helping the people, okay? So, TJ Hawkinson, like I said before, was my must-start against the Bears for tight end. Now, my sit of the week, Tom Brady versus the Saints. Now, you're going to hear some big names in this list simply because the sits, I'm trying to prevent you from losing out on streaming guys or maybe putting in your backups in spots where they have really bad matchups. Tom Brady has a really bad matchup against the Saints. The Saints are one of those top defenses that are must starts. They have a plethora of guys on all levels of defense to stop Tom Brady in this hype train, okay? They're going to stop this hype train before it even gets out of the station, okay? Tom Brady is the second worst quarterback last year for pressure. Now, I mentioned this to someone earlier in the week, and they're like, oh, yeah, but that was just last year. That's all that matters because it shows his age. It shows where he is, okay? Yes, he didn't have the kind of weapons that he has here in Tampa, in New England, but it's the same guy. He's never been a mobile quarterback. He's going to have to move around, and he's going to have to get rid of the ball quick. What does that mean? That means that Chris Godwin is going to be another must start. But if you drafted Chris Godwin, you got him high, so you're starting him anyway. That's why he's not on the must start list, okay? Tom Brady is a must sit for this week. Nick Chubb is my running back sit for this week against the Ravens. Look, this is a bad matchup. They're probably going to be in negative game script. Yes, they're probably going to try to run the ball a lot against the Ravens just because they have to keep the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hands. But I don't see them being able to do that because they're going to be behind the whole game. Now, this next one might surprise you guys, but DeAndre Hopkins versus the Niners. Look, guys, it's the Niners. This is like the top 2 or 3 defense in the NFL, and it's D-Hop on a brand new team. Now, I can't tell you how many times we've had these elite wide receivers go to different teams and not do well. It takes them a minute to get acclimated to game time with their new quarterback, in their new scheme. Take a second. I know you drafted D-Hop a little early, but move somebody in there who has a better matchup this week, okay? See what D-Hop's going to be about. If he's on your bench and he scores 20 points, great. Okay, then you know you know that he's fitting in, you know that he's clicking with Kyler Murray, but you have to see how he is going to fit into this Cliff Kingsbury offense. Okay, the Vikes against Green Bay. Look, the Vikings defense is not what it used to be, and Aaron Rodgers is on a mission. Okay, watch out. It's going to be ugly. He's upset, and you know how Aaron Rodgers gets when he's upset. So, next one, the tight end, Gronk versus the Saints. Look, I was looking all around, and I don't know why this didn't hit me earlier, but Gronk versus the Saints. Gronk was going way too high, first of all, okay? He should never have been drafted. There are two other tight ends in Tampa, in O.J. Howard and in Cameron Brate, okay? These guys were on the team last year. They didn't go anywhere. They've got 4 running backs that they're carrying right now. Okay, they're rostering 4 running backs. They just lost Mike Evans. They've got an older Tom Brady who's going to need some protection, and they're going to need to hand the ball off to one of these 4 running backs, or maybe all 4 of them. So I don't see Gronk having a big game unless they get down around the goal line and they just toss it up to him. But for your sanity, for my sake, please either trade Gronk or at least bench him for this week, okay? It's a bad matchup with the Saints. So, let's look at week 1. We've already been through the KC Texans game. You got what you got for that one. Now, here's the thing. Did you make that rookie mistake? Are you a rookie that made a mistake? And you guys know what I'm talking about. Did you forget to set your lineup? Yeah, probably. And this is going to happen sometimes when you're just starting out, when you're all excited, Thursday night game rolls around, and you forgot to put in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, get you 21 points on your bench. You know who I'm talking to. So, guys, make sure you pay attention to the injury report. Make sure you pay attention to when the games start, and make sure that you pay attention to who you have in your lineup, okay? Don't just let it go. Just don't hit optimize and think that everything's all hunky-dory. Take a second, look at your team, and make sure that everybody is where you want them to be, okay? So, week 1, Sunday, tomorrow, the 13th, we're looking at Philly and Washington. How injured is Philly? How are these injuries going to affect them? And what kind of game script are we going to look at? How good is Washington's defense? Look, I've said it on the show a lot of times, is that Washington's defense is going to be phenomenal. They are going to be so improved, it's not even funny. They are starting 5 first-round picks on their front 7 alone, okay? Look, Chase Young is going to wreak havoc, okay? He's coming in there and he's just going to rip it up. Jonathan Allen from last year, he's still there. He's ripping it up. Okay, guys, they have the talent. Ryan Kerrigan is still no joke. All right, and they're going up against a really banged up Philly offense. They had to move Jason Peters over to left tackle and give him a pay raise. Okay, so they got people out of position. They've got banged up players. This is going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. A lot of people think the Philly's just going to blow Washington out, but I'm telling you right now, it is going to be a much better game than what people think. Has Haskins really taken that step that we keep hearing about coming out of training camp? And the Washington running back, what are they going to do with that? Okay, they've already got rid of Geis. They already released Adrian Peterson. He already signed with Detroit. So what are we going to do? Okay, what is Washington's backfield going to look like? Is it going to be the Antonio Gibson show? Probably. Okay, but let's do a wait and see on that one. Okay, how is Bryce Love going to fit into this? We will see. Seahawks versus Atlanta. Was Jamal Adams worth the acquisition for Seattle? Is he going to be worth as much as they paid? Look, they're going up against Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. They're going up against Hayden Hurst, Matt Ryan, Todd Gurley. A lot of big names, a lot of potential for a lot of damage against the Seahawks, and this might turn into a shootout. So if you've got DK Metcalf, like my wife does, you're starting him. If you have Tyler Lockett, you're starting him. This is going to be a really, really high-scoring game. speaking of Todd Gurley, how does Gurley look? If he looks like David Johnson, you're really happy. If he looks like Todd Gurley last year, you're really upset. So something to keep an eye on. How connected is Hayden Hurst and Matt Ryan? If this connection is anything like the Austin Hooper connection that Ryan had with Hooper before he left, this is going to be dangerous. Okay, if you have Hayden Hurst on your squad and you don't have a better option at tight end, you're plugging him in with this matchup. Does Carson look as good as advertised? Look, there's been a lot of praise coming out of Seattle that Chris Carson is fine. He's the hip is great, but what's really the truth? We're about to find out. Jets, Bills, are Diggs and Allen connected? Look, Diggs talked his way out of Minnesota. How is this going to be a good connection? Because this is a run-first offense, guys. Okay. How good can Darnold be? Okay. We don't know. The Bills' defense is stout. It's one of the top defenses in the NFL. So we're going to find out, Darnold's going to be under a lot of pressure. Okay, so don't expect a lot out of it. Singletary or Moss or both. Okay, are we looking at Devin Singletary or are we looking at Zach Moss? We don't know. All right, so we're going to see how the run-first option is going to be working. For the Bills, see how that goes. With this being a probably really low-scoring game, or at least a blowout by the Bills, this is probably going to be really interesting to see what the backfield does. Does Le'Veon Bell still have it? Look, like I said before, when he was my sit of the week, or talking about his week 1 blow-up. Look, Lev Bell, we don't know. There's reports coming out that he's lost a step from his own camp. So, we'll see what it is. Bears, Lions. Chicago starting quarterback. Who is it? We already know it's Mitch Trubisky. They already came out and said it. But how is that going to hold up? If he struggles, is he on a short line? We don't know. If he's on a short leash, then he's going to get the hook early if he messes up. We're looking at Matt Stafford. How good can Stafford be this year? I love Matt Stafford this year. And who is the Chicago running back? Okay, with Tevin Coleman, Terry Cohen is going to have to step up. David Montgomery was dinged up in the week. Now we hear reports that he's back, that he's fine, that he's going to start. What's going to happen? I have David Montgomery in one of my leagues, so we'll see how that goes. I don't have him starting, but I'm really interested in how he does. Packers, Vikes. Packers, how pissed off is Rodgers?